Gear up, cursed warriors! Dive into the chaotic demon-slaying frenzy of Archived, Roblox's hardcore RPG where traits turn you into a JJK-grade legend or a dungeon-dropping goof. Picture Resourceful stacking loot like a shonen hoarder, while Chromatic paints itself into a corner with a rainbow fumble. I'm your Trait Shard grinding, reroll chasing maniac who's wiped more times than a rookie in a Sukuna raid, laughed at my own Rojima stumbles, and still chases Proficient's flawless combos. We're ranking every trait from S-tier meta monsters to D-tier duds, packed with wild anime tales and pro tips to dominate PvP and PvE with that archived edge. Farm trait shards, trade for mythics, and let's conquer the cursed battlefield like true sorcerers. Gear up, cursed warriors! Dive into the chaotic, demon-slaying frenzy of Archived, Roblox's hardcore RPG, where traits turn you into a JJK-grade legend or a dungeon-dropping goof. Picture Resourceful stacking loot like a shonen hoarder, while Chromatic paints itself into a corner with a rainbow fumble. I'm your Trait Shard grinding, reroll chasing maniac who's wiped more times than a rookie in a Sukuna raid, laughed at my own Rojima stumbles, and still chases Proficient's flawless combos. We're ranking every trait from S-tier meta monsters to D-tier duds, packed with wild anime tales and pro tips to dominate PvP and PvE with that archived edge. Farm trait shards, trade for mythics, and let's conquer the cursed battlefield like true sorcerers. Now let's talk about the bottom of the barrel, where D-tier traits fumble like a novice in a Chainsaw Man boss fight. These are for newbies with no shards but plenty of grit to laugh at their own chaos. Time to kick things off with Immovable, a stubborn trait that plants you like a cursed statue. It tried to tank a PvE boss but got stuck in the mud, turning the fight into an immovable mess. Its high defense boost helps early game tanking, but the sluggish speed penalty makes you a sitting duck in PvP. Use it for low-level PvE, pair with a heavy weapon for a faint spark, and reroll fast before the demons swarm you. Next up is Guard Pardue, a defensive trait that's more shield than shine. In a PvP duel, it blocked a hit but tripped over its own ego, making the fight a Guard Pardue goof. The extra stamina helps you outlast early enemies, but its lack of offensive buffs leaves you lagging in fast-paced battles. Slot it for starter dungeons, pair with a tanky build for a weak edge, and swap it out quick to avoid a wipe. Let's check out Rojima, a trait that promises precision but swings wide. It aimed for a critical hit in a PvE raid but sliced a crate instead, turning the fight into a Rojima blooper. Its minor crit chance boost is okay for early grinding, but the inconsistent procs and low impact make it forgettable. Use it for basic quests, pair with a katana for a slight kick, and reroll before it flops harder. Time to dazzle with Chromatic, a colorful trait that's more flash than function. In a PvP match, it tried to blind foes with a rainbow burst, but painted itself into a corner, making the fight a chromatic chuckle. Its tiny elemental damage buff is fun, but too weak for serious fights, and it eats up shard slots better used elsewhere. Use it for early flare, pair with a mage build for a dim spark, and ditch it fast. Let's dive into the middle ground, where C-tier traits spark some hope but fizzle under pressure. These are for grinders who laugh at their own missteps while hunting better rolls. First up, meet Manical, a frenzied trait that swings wild but misses the mark. It unleashed a berserk flurry in a PvE dungeon but tripped over its own rage, turning the fight into a manical mayhem. Its attack speed boost is decent for early game mob clearing, but the stamina drain makes it a liability in long fights. Use it for quick starter dungeon runs, pair with a light weapon for a burst, and reroll when it burns out. Now let's shimmer with Shimmering, a trait that glows but doesn't glow up. In a PvP duel, it tried to dazzle with a light burst but blinded itself, making the fight a shimmering slip-up. Its minor evasion buff helps dodge early attacks, but the low proc rate and lack of damage make it underwhelming. Use it for low-level PvE, pair with a dagger for a feint dodge, and swap it for something punchier. Time to stand firm with Resolute, a trait that's steady but not spectacular. It braced for a boss hit in a PvE raid but stood too still, turning the fight into a resolute snooze. Its stamina regen is nice for drawn-out PvE grinds, but the lack of offensive power leaves it outclassed. Use it for mid-game tanking, pair with a shield for a small boost, and re-roll before it bores you. Let's gasp with Hypoxic, a trait that chokes more than it chugs. In a PvP match, it tried to sap enemy stamina, but wheezed itself, making the fight a hypoxic hiccup. Its minor crowd control debuff can slow foes, but the weak effect and high shard costs make it a poor pick. Use it for early PvE control, pair with a staff for a slight edge, and reroll fast to breathe easier. Time to step into the fray where B-tier traits bring decent buffs to Archived's battlefield but stumble in the meta. These are for shard farmers who grin at their own fumbles. Let's start with Agile, a speedy trait that zips but doesn't zap. It dashed through a PvE wave but tripped on a cursed route, turning the fight into an agile oops. Its movement speed boost is great for repositioning in PvP, but the lack of damage or defense buffs limits its impact. Use it for mid-game kiting, pair with a rapier for a quick strike, and keep moving to stay relevant. Next up is Bizarre, a quirky trait that's more odd than awesome. In a PvE dungeon, it tried a weird combo but confused itself, making the fight a bizarre blunder. Its random stat boost can surprise with crits or stamina, but the inconsistency frustrates in clutch moments. Use it for mid-game PvE, pair with a versatile weapon for a spark, and re-roll if it feels too chaotic. Time to chill with Calm, a trait that keeps it cool but not clutch. It stayed zen in a PvP duel but zoned out mid-combo, turning the fight into a calm coma. Its cooldown reduction helps spam skills in PvE, but the modest effect doesn't shine in high-stakes battles. Use it for mid-game grinding, pair with a mage build for a cooldown kick, and swap it for more firepower. Let's shake things up with Unpredictable, a trait that thrives on chaos but flops on focus. In a PvE raid, it landed a wild crit but whiffed the next, making the fight an unpredictable jest. Its random damage spikes can clutch early fights, but the unreliability tanks in late-game meta. Use it for mid-game PvP, pair with a scythe for a chaotic edge, and re-roll for consistency. Finally, let's roll with Reactive, a trait that counters but doesn't conquer. It parried a PvP strike but overreacted into a wall, turning the fight into a reactive riot. Its counterattack buff is solid for defensive PvP builds, but the low trigger rate and weak scaling hold it back. Use it for mid-game duels, pair with a shield for a counterspark, and trade it out for bigger buffs. Time to charge into the Elite Zone, where A-tier traits step up as Archived's battle-ready buffs. These traits are near meta, but held back by minor flaws, perfect for shard-rich players ready to flex. First off, meet Indomitable, a tanky trait that shrugs off hits like a shonen tank. It soaked a boss slam in a PvE raid, but got cocky and tripped, making the fight an indomitable drama. Its high HP and defense boosts make it a PvE beast, but the slow recovery speed can leave you exposed in fast PvP. Use it for late-game tanking, pair with a great axe for a sturdy strike, and stand tall. Next, let's get twitchy with Paranoid, a trait that dodges danger but jumps at shadows. In a PvP duel, it evaded a combo but panicked into a trap, turning the fight into a paranoid parody. Its evasion and speed buffs shine for kiting in PvP, but the stamina cost can drain you mid-fight. Use it for endgame duels, pair with a katana for a slippery edge, and dodge smart. Time to plan with Methodical, a trait that strategizes but overthinks. It plotted a perfect PvE wave clear but hesitated, making the fight a methodical misstep. Its cooldown and damage buffs are great for calculated PvE grinds, but the slow activation lags in hectic PvP. Use it for late-game quests, pair with a staff for a precise spark, and act fast to stay sharp. Let's surge with Energetic, a trait that's a stamina dynamo but burns out. In a PvE dungeon, it sprinted through mobs but crashed from exhaustion, turning the fight into an energetic oops. Its stamina regen and speed boost fuel long PvE runs, but the lack of direct damage limits PvP impact. Use it for grinding, pair with a spear for a zippy combo, and re-roll for more punch. Finally, let's hold steady with Steadfast, a trait that endures but doesn't excel. It braced for a PvP onslaught but stood too rigid, making the fight a steadfast snooze. Its defense and stamina regen are solid for endgame tanking, but the lack of offensive buffs keeps it from S tier. Use it for PvE raids, pair with a hammer for a tough hit, and trade up for bigger plays. Now, let's unleash the top dogs, where S-tier traits reign as Archived's unstoppable metagods. These buffs dominate PvP and PvE, built for shard-rich pros who want to flex and gloat. First off, meet Resourceful, a loot-hoarding legend that stacks shards like a cursed dragon. In a PvE raid, it grabbed every drop but tripped over its own haul, turning the fight into a resourceful riot. Its shard drop rate and stat boosts make farming a breeze, though it can clog inventory space if you're not careful. Use it for all content, pair with a scythe for a grind king, and hoard with swagger. Next, let's flare with Hot-Headed, a fiery trait that burns through foes. It unleashed a blazing combo in a PvP duel but singed its own cape, making the fight a hot-headed epic. Its massive damage and crit boosts shred enemies in both modes, though the slight stamina cost needs smart management. Use it for endgame PvP, pair with a katana for a fiery slash, and blaze to victory. Time to master with Proficient, a trait that's pure precision perfection. It landed a flawless combo in a PvE boss fight, but showboated into a trap, turning the fight into a proficient spectacle. Its damage, crit, and cooldown buffs make it a meta monster, with the only downside being its rare 0.1% drop rate. Use it for all battles, pair with a rapier for a lethal edge, and dominate like a pro. Finally, let's freeze with Coldness, a chilling trait that locks down the battlefield. In a PvP match, it iced a rival but slipped on its own frost, making the fight a Coldness legend. Its crowd control and damage buffs crush waves and duels, though the high shard cost demands grinding. Use it for endgame content, pair with a staff for an icy combo, and freeze the competition solid. Want to rule archived like a JJK sorcerer? Pair Resourceful with Proficient for a loot-heavy, combo-crushing PvP duo that obliterates rivals. For PvE, mix Coldness with Hot-Headed for a freeze-burn storm that clears cursed domains like a Gojo snap. Farm Trait Shards in dungeons, 50-100 per run, or trade Mythic Tokens at the altar for a shot at S-tier traits. Newbies, grab Agile for early mobility. Pros, reroll for Proficient to top leaderboards. Synergize Paranoid with Methodical for a slippery PvP build, or Indomitable with Resourceful for a tanky PvE grind. Prioritize plus damage traits for PvP burst or plus stamina for PvE endurance, and grind cursed shards in high difficulty domains for mythic drops. Check Discord or Trello for patch notes and trading tips to stay meta.